Hello, everybody. Welcome to the next episode on my channel. Today's guest speaker is Garima, a thought leader in DevOps, cloud, data science, and AI technologies with about 2 decades of experience leading large-scale R&D projects. She's the founder of the DevOps Community of Practice in Canada and also the leader of the Continuous Delivery Foundation's Ambassador Program. She's also an accomplished author and speaker with rich experience in creating high-performing teams and shaping the future of tech leadership. Let's go ahead and listen to her career journey. Hi, Garima. Very good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing good as well. Thank you so much. That you know the process, Garima, let's quickly get started with a quick introduction about yourself.
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. And I would like to introduce myself as a DevOps community leader. I am the founder for the DevOps Community of Practice here in Canada, which has several chapters: Ottawa, Toronto, Edmonton, Atlantic provinces, Montreal. I'm also the chair for the ambassador program at Continuous Delivery Foundation. I've been leading this program for several years. We can talk more about it during the session. I am the producer for the DevOps Summit, which happens every year. This is the sixth time which we will be running the summit. And I'm associated with some publication houses as a technically in the advisory capacity. I've written some books. So obviously you'll get to know me better during this session. And I mean, lastly, I carry 20 plus years of R&D experience, especially in telecommunication. So we can also discuss and talk about that.
Okay, that was a very rich experience that you spoke about. Thanks for that short intro. We'll quickly get into the questions. So the first one is around your career evolution. With the amount of experience that you have and the various areas that you're leading and that you started off, right, with over 2 decades, with significant contributions, especially in the R&D initiatives, how has your approach to leadership evolved over the years, especially in adapting to new technologies like AI and data science?
Things have changed a lot. As we have noticed, the evolution of leadership from where I started in like beginning of 2000s, just to highlight like the significant shift which we are seeing, all of us are seeing, is that it has been from a like operations job to a strategic innovation job, right? We're living in a digital age where the workplace has also transformed from office only to like remote first opportunities for many. We also have seen that generations of workforce work together now. Generation Z, for example, the workforce is growing with that perspective, and it's significantly changing the way we are working today. So the leadership approach has shifted from like where I started in 2000, where a lot of focus was on like productivity matrices or outsourcing initiatives and cost cutting objectives, to like today we talk more about like in-house innovation, growth mindset, more about agility and bringing everybody on board to new ideas, right? So the role of leadership is fundamentally changing. If you see, the role of a leader is how to turn around the culture and how well data and analytics can be used in decision making, for example. And one of the other aspects which I see is inspiring various generations at workforce. When you see a team, there is a diverse mix of people with age, experience, diversity in gender, even demography, right? So it requires primarily new skills from a leadership perspective. How do you onboard to, let's say, common vision, and how do you inculcate that kind of sense of purpose in various generations? It might lead to like new skills of communication from a strategic point of view. And if you see like storytelling, for example, has a lot of kind of put a lot of emphasis from a leadership perspective, making that use of effective communication technologies through like mix of a mix of technology initiatives which we have. Like we have to do, we also have to kind of onboard to a new ways of digital literacy. Like there are new tools and applications, and social engineering, for example, is one of the great ways to communicate with our teams, our audience out there. And from a leadership perspective, I also see there is a shift towards engineering leadership. So leaders should be willing to learn and contribute beyond managing people. So there is a lot of changes as we see in the ecosystem when we talk about leadership role.
Yeah, that was a wonderful summary, Garima. I think the most important point that you emphasize is a diverse mix of people. It's not just about the gender; it's also about different ages. The younger ones and the older ones, and also like what you mentioned about, it's not only about leading; it's about learning, and it's just not about managing people anymore, right? They also need to be like technically advanced. And I think the first point that you mentioned, in-house innovation, is key instead of just buying different tools. So yeah, thanks so much for explaining that. Moving on to the second one, since you're leading so many new initiatives, right, in different areas, it's around community building. So, as a founder of DevOps Community of Practice in Canada, what inspired you to create this community and how has it impacted the DevOps ecosystem in the region?
That's a great question. And I would like to move ahead with what I alluded in the first instance, that people are diverse, and we are also evolving to becoming more demographically more diverse, right? So the community building aspect provides an opportunity to meet a lot of diverse set of peoples, like not mentioning only different ethnicity or different age groups, even underrepresented groups. And if I talk about Canadian ecosystem, I happen to meet a lot of immigrant technocrats in this community of practice. So from my perspective as a leader, I was very curious to test, let's say, the social aspects of technology. And if you see, a lot of social engineering technologies have come to life in the past few years. So it had opened doors for me to kind of experiment a little bit on how this community of practice can be developed further, and how it can help opening up a wider participation to onboard technology in an ethical way. And when you talk about all these crowdsourcing initiatives and community based initiatives like the DevOps Community of Practice here in Canada, we help community members and leaders to systematically look beyond, or even outside their own organizations, for innovative ideas to solve not only their organizational problems, but also help solve wider or broader problems, like how to build ethical framework for technology, what kind of advancements you can see for emerging technologies in DevOps or AI related landscape. A lot of community leaders are curious about how these technology could shape up, and these crowdsourcing initiatives through our community has helped not only like operational leadership, but also from a strategic perspective. We have invited like DevOps leaders to develop solutions and competitive intelligence for their products and services. We have also co-created features with these communities and brainstorm ideas. Even we have helped in startups and business communities to develop into new business models, and these are like community initiatives. So obviously, there are many projects which we have spun off from the community of practice, and I will give you examples of some of them. So we pioneered the DevOps Summit Canada here. Then we also had some micro summits like FinOps Summit, SRE Summit, because these all summits or conferences have helped like strategic leadership in these different dimensions or different pockets, right? And it has primarily been done from a bottoms up perspective. So it's very very exciting for us to see how such initiatives through fostering collaboration, we have developed these new ways of working, and all, like, not to kind of limit ourselves to only the business contributions. We also see that we have been able to inculcate talent pool. And this talent pool is not like for a specific organization or a specific like community. It is for a broader good or a greater good for the practitioners like us, like who have been into senior leadership roles. We often don't find these kind of social engineering platforms where we can brainstorm our ideas, right? So this has been a very good like experience for me and other community leaders. Like if you talk to other community leaders from Toronto, from Montreal, from Edmonton, they will share this experience with me, that this is what they have also learned in during this journey. And it has been several years we have been running this community. So I see a lot of community leaders developing into like strategic profiles, so that also gives us like a lot of pleasure. And we are grateful that these people have been part of this community.
Thank you. Thanks, Garima. I think that was a wonderful explanation of, and it also shows why you're leading this, right? You had an in-depth sense of what's happening around there. And especially the why plays a very important role when you're leading something, right? The important point that you emphasized on is like, it's a social engineering platform. It's a place where you actually helps develop strategic perspectives. I think that's very, very key. And also, you meant, the micro summits kind of help find out if there are common problems. Somebody's already worked on it, and it leads, it gives you solution beyond what your particular organization that you're working for, right? Perfect. Great, great. Great answer. Thanks, Garima. Moving on to the next one, that's about Continuous Delivery Foundation. That's also one of the streams that you're leading. You're the ambassador for the Continuous Delivery Foundation. It is no small feat. It's a big one, right? So, what has been your biggest challenge in this role, and how have you overcome it?
Right. Before I delve into the biggest challenge, and I think there were many challenges, right? But I thought through this question, and I will come back to your question. But I wanted to also give you some brief idea about like to your audience that what Continuous Delivery Foundation is, right? Some of these people would not know. So Continuous Delivery Foundation is an organization which fosters open source community collaboration for improving the ability to deliver software with security and speed. Continuous Delivery Foundation serves as a vendor neutral home for many of the fast growing projects for continuous integration and continuous delivery. And you can also check out their website. We have a lot of like projects which are hosted into the this Continuous Delivery Foundation. The aim for us to have like developers or end users and vendors to kind of foster that collaboration to build best practices and industry specifications and standards. Also, I mean, if you see the which projects are hosted, I mean, initially from the inception stages, Continuous Delivery Foundation hosted Jenkins X, Spinnaker, Tecton, and our technical oversight committee, which I am also a nominated member towards, is accepting new projects as well in that domain. So obviously, do look out what is happening there, and if you are associated with some open source communities, see how you can foster your collaboration into this, because I think community contributions go a long way. Now, coming back to your question, like what was the biggest challenge from a leadership perspective? I actually was one of the drivers for the ambassador group to kind of spin off. And it's in the inception stages I've been with this community. So the biggest challenge which I see, and this is again associated with any such community which is kind of gathering a set of volunteers and kind of growing organically, uh, carefully navigating and crafting a shared vision is important, because community has to become much more than individual contributors. So when volunteers, and we are all volunteers in the space, if we share a common vision, then we can become much more than a community of individuals, right? And that was one of the biggest challenges which we had. So individual objectives should somehow take a back seat or fade away and blend into a bigger objective. And this is again relevant to any community which we foster. But in this case, I think because our strategic objective was, very uh, sharp, and it was nailed down to a certain extent, it was one of the challenges which we had. I think another challenge which I reflect, and again, people who are associated with these open source communities would appreciate that developing or fostering strategic leadership, inclusion into this. Like, if you think about open source communities, often it is led by developer communities, so people who can write code, right? So now, how do we include strategic leadership into this, who have a voice at the table? So how do we bring investors or decision making or board members into this community as ambassadors? Because we not only want to the community contributor is not only writing code, right? It's beyond that. Like, it's beyond like, how do we influence investment, even how do we influence business models or standardization, or even approaches towards best practices? A lot needs to happen in this space. So we need to get together with a right mindset of people, and at all levels. So it's not only the developer community, but also like looking beyond that. That was one of my biggest challenges, and I think we still have that challenge to a certain extent. And we continue to kind of move towards bringing more strategic leadership into it.
Okay. Great, great, Garima. Thanks for initially explaining what continuous delivery means and why it's so important for open source communities to come together. And the important point that you emphasized on, it's beyond just coding, and how various factors of a business are put together, like your vendors, investments, business leaders, and why strategic leadership or strategical thinking is so important. So, like you said, that's a challenge that you're still facing, but I'm sure you're navigating it so well. That's why you're still continuing to lead the team there, right? Great, great. Thanks, Garima, for that. Moving on to the next question, right? In continuation to the previous one, it's about the future of DevOps and cloud. So, looking ahead, how do you see the role of DevOps and cloud technologies evolving in the next 5 years? What should organizations focus on to stay ahead in this space?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, and I don't have a crystal ball at my hand, right? So I will try to do my best based on what I feel would could be the next steps for DevOps. And let's first kind of dwell into like what can change from people's or practitioners' perspective. Because being a people leader, I focus on how the practitioners and the skill set will be transforming, and then we can come back to that question of how DevOps and cloud would be transitioning into the next kind of steps in their journey. So if you look at the macro trends, and the technology, it's a mixed bag. It's a mixed outlook, even for job creation and destruction in the next 5 years. So if you see, and I was reading one of the reports here, that 30 to 35% increase, which is around 1.4 million job increases, are kind of set on the cards. And these job increases are for specific roles like data analyst and data scientist, big data specialist, business intelligence analyst, database and network professionals, and data engineers. That will drive the advancement and growth of these emerging technologies, right? So we will rely on big data in the next 2 to 3 years and upcoming 5 years a lot, for decision making and also for growth, right? And what can it mean to like people who are already into this field? So obviously I also constantly research on these topics, because I also have a channel through which I advocate what skill shift is happening, and how do we get prepared as leaders and practitioners. So I would say that people who have generalist role with broad skill set, but not no contemporary areas, like if you're not working with cyber or cloud, I think it is bound to happen that you might like to have some kind of focus on upskilling, because it is highly likely these kind of skill set professionals will struggle to remain relevant in the current and in future environment. So being like a specialist and not having a generalist capability is one of the pointers I would kind of suggest here. The other aspect is, often people ask that what will happen to like individuals who have expertise in Java or Python or similar technology, like they are software developers primarily with like one niche skill set. So my advice to the people out there is, if you are a software developer, obviously these generic, like the individual programming languages which we currently use, and you say, feel that sense of security, I think that might not be the case in 2 3 years. So please grow your skill set into multiple languages, and also try to be kind of more broader in that space of software development. Another key area which I see is, obviously we have talked about data and AI, but with generative AI, a lot of you know a lot of enhancements will be done in the software development space. So there will be new roles emerging, like AI moderators or AI developers. So think about like experimenting and also getting hold of these aspects of emerging technologies, so that when these roles emerge, you have relevance in next 2 to 5 years, right? So that is around the people, like the skill gap which we foresee in like next upcoming years. With an example, I will explain to you what could happen, and this again can be a little controversial, so that's why I kept it at the end. So if you remember July 19th, what happened with the outages through like Microsoft platform, which was primarily due to a crowd strike, right? So we have seen that there was a cascaded impact on the supply chain, with at least projected $1 billion impact on the overall industry. So with that in mind, I think people or organizations have starting to see that how this cloud movement could shift to like a balancing act. So I have written a blog on this as well. I can share it with you. You can drop down in the link, cloud first to cloud minimalism in making. So, and there are certain triggers which we already see. So obviously I wouldn't say that it's time to kind of think otherwise, but obviously cloud technologies will continue to grow, but there will be a certain amount of organizations who will start to look at like from a cost perspective, what kind of balancing act they can do for cloud, from security and data sovereignty perspective. Things are becoming more complex, and organizations have to dig deeper into compliance demands, for example. So how do we balance the workload of on cloud and in premise, and what can be like done? So there will be a lot of action in that space. And from a performance and resiliency perspective, um, like cloud outage can impact not only your SLAs but your revenue, and that needs to be kind of considered very carefully. So all in all, I think, as I said, that nobody has a crystal ball at hand, but these things are also kind of not being ignorant of the situation here, and see, organizations might also look at different scenarios, performing balancing act, like from a cloud first to a cloud uh, minimalism, in next 5 to 10 years. Or maybe there might be another model, because if you see, a lot of these cloud workloads impact us if there is not enough resilience and performance.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. I think that was a very Well said. Balance between what could happen based on what it is currently. And I think the more emphasis that you pay mentioned on, don't be a generalist, you need to get a specialist, and likely this is what can happen in the next 3 to 5 years. Right. And of course, I think the cloud stack was a perfect example of, how anything could be so globally impacted of one small something that broke, right? Nobody could have ever expected that, where flights were delayed by like 24 hours and so on. So definitely yes. And yeah, I would take the blog link from you and I would post it in the comments, so that in the descriptions people can refer to that and what you've written about that incident. Thank you so much for that, Garima. uh, Moving on to the next one, right? With so much of working with people and all of that stuff, right? And you've grown over the years as well. So this is about collaboration and growth. So you're passionate about creating high performing organizations with top tech talent. In your experience, what are the key factors that contribute to building such teams, and how do you nurture and retain top talent?
So it's also another good question, right? And as a leader, you constantly learn as you go along, right? So from my perspective, I feel that commitment, from a team perspective, the team has to remain committed to a certain shared vision or goal, right? And how do you foster that commitment is very important. If, let's say, if a team understands what the job is, how they contribute to the bigger business goal, then you are able to foster that belongingness, right? Even for an individual in a team, if they know what their job is and how they are contributing to that team goal, so they foster that bigger business contribution. So it's very, very important that the sense of purpose and belonging for every individual in the team should be there. And how do you manage to kind of develop that? It's also like being committed to a certain like shared vision and goal, and also communicating it well, to your teams. Communicate openly what are the challenges, risks, what are the uncertainties you dwell it in day to day life, right? So all that, like, complex, it's a complex mix of skill set which a leader carries to bring that trust and commitment towards the team, right? So that's one of the main factors. Building a good team means that you, as a leader, you're committed to your goals, and also make people understand what, how, where, and how, and what they contribute, right? The second part of it is also very complex, but it's very less understood. I mean, is how do we make decisions also impact how well your team functions or works, right? So if, let's say, as a leader, you have a linear process of decision making from a top, would it work? It it could have worked 20 years ago, but right now I think that's where a lot of leaders also are struggling, because that linear pattern of decision making does not work anymore. So how do you come out not with the obvious solutions? Like, for example, if somebody asks you that you want to cut cost for your organization for certain kind of IT infrastructure, the obvious answer would be going to cloud, right? But if you want to foster innovation, that obvious answer should go out of the door. You need to brainstorm, you need to kind of come together to find different innovative solutions to that problem, right? So that's where I think you will foster stronger teams. And third part is growth opportunities. If, let's say, and growth opportunities comes along with how do you create that commitment towards the team, and how well the job is understood, how do you make decisions, how do you be inclusive in fostering that collaboration, not just building obvious solutions, because there is learning opportunity for everyone. As a leader you learn, as an individual, as a team you learn, and then there will be growth opportunities, right? So creating those growth opportunities also helps teams to kind of lead. I mean, if I see like Canada Community of Practice, for example, we have fostered so many leaders from the community, and I see so many leaders bringing up innovative solutions, products. They are leading like big strategic engagements in like organizations. So it helps us kind of develop that kind of collaboration with these people as well. So if your team grows and some of these team members become strategic leaders in your organizations, that will help the team itself, right? So it's also a confidence booster. So these are like some practical thinking around. And again, it's a complex mix. Leadership is very complex in the age of digital transformation. So obviously as a leader you also are learning as you go along.
Yeah, yeah, I think that was very well said. The most important thing of, how do you tie your team members' deliverables to a business goal? I think most places that is not explained or the team member does not know it, probably because of whatever level they are working on. And, for them, it appears to be a mundane task unless probably the manager or the team leader tells them how it's associated with the company's goals or the business goals, right? Thank you so much for actually going ahead and explaining that as one of the most key factors for retaining top talent, right? And thinking out of the box, right? Brainstorming to find innovative solutions. And like you said, everybody gets to the easiest or the quickest or the already available solution. And probably there's somebody in the team who thinks beyond that. Giving that space, I think, is key for somebody to, continue working and grow as well. Cool. And yeah, definitely growth opportunities, not within the team, but maybe in different teams within the same org as well. Thank you. Thanks so much, Garima, for explaining these points on leadership. I think that actually shows your space as well and how and why you're growing as well. Thank you. All right, Garima, moving on to the next question here that we have for you is about uh, books and publications, right? You've authored books on continuous delivery and CI/CD design patterns. What key insights from these books do you believe are crucial for organizations looking to modernize their tech stack?
So in my book I have dwelt deeper into like what is required for like engineering leaders and strategic leaders to kind of onboard to continuous delivery. We often hear that software is eating the world, and people are kind of curious to know like how we can onboard to these new technologies or emerging technology trends. So I've helped through my book these engineering leaders and the leadership people to kind of address the challenges in continuous delivery, how to kind of frame OKRs, for example, what kind of return of investment they can expect, what kind of risk reward assessment models they can kind of foster into the organization. Often you see that leaders are also struggling with open source, right? I mean, not every organization has kind of fostered the similar collaboration with open source practitioners. So I've also looked at that as aspect in my book, like how to deal with, let's say, copyright issues, what kind of licensing model would be great for open source initiatives, how to foster your first open source project. And if you are not open to open source, how do you create that inner sourcing model within your organization to foster similar collaboration with practitioners? So these are like very critical questions for leaders of digital age, right? And lastly, I think continuous innovation. So, with the emerging technology trends, it's not easy to keep up as a leader. That how to shorten the widening skill gap, how do you have team topologies created in your organization, which can help you in different initiatives? How do you leverage these practitioners to best of their ability? And how do you transform the culture to a more innovative, agile, and collaborative culture for the future? So these are like very different topics from what you have seen in technology books. So I think I'm filling that gap with the books which I'm writing. And the design pattern book is also a very very interesting book. I cannot talk more about that topic. Just that design patterns is, you can see that we have tried to kind of come up with standardized approaches or deployment models for continuous delivery patterns. And this will also simplify a lot of practitioner overload, like what you see today with the cognitive load on practitioners. How do you kind of release that pressure, and how we can make this more simplistic, like simply simplifying this kind of posture of contest delivery. Yeah, stack.
Okay, great. I think I would actually put these books links as well in the description so that people can refer to that because you kind of covered so much. I think dealing with copyright issues, struggling with open source, insourcing, inner sourcing, not insourcing, sorry, the inner sourcing model. I think these are key factors, mostly maybe how leaders can even take that approach is something that you've called out. So I'm sure people who are budding leadership, it's going to be super useful for them. So yeah. Thank you. Thanks for that, Garima. I think you kind of really gave it very, very crisp. I'm sure your book has more details in it. Thank you for that. Last one, but not the least, right? Recognitions and awards. If I look at your LinkedIn introduction, you've quite a few there, right? So you've received numerous accolades for your contributions to the tech industry. So which recognition holds the most significance for you and why? Though I know all are equally important, but still the one that's very close to you.
Right. I mean, first of all, I would like to highlight that awards and recognition are like a powerful confidence booster for even the leaders. Leaders in this time are not acknowledged enough because we are dealing with a lot of complex issues. So obviously, I would like to thank all the people who are fostering those collaboration in the award space for leadership. That's great that we see that. And coming back to your question, like one of my first awards, which I got for the community leadership from DevOps India Summit, is very close to my heart because it's not an individual award. It's like award for fostering DevOps Community of Practice, which was one of the unique initiatives in Canada, which we kind of thought through. And this award comes from India, so I think that the collaboration has gone beyond Canada, right? So that's a very good one. Then I also acknowledge the awards which I got from Goodness Delivery Foundation, like one of the first few awards as top ambassador, because that also substantiate that the work we are doing is valuable for the community, right? So that is again uh, also very close to what I do. And lastly, I'm very proud of the award I got last year in 2023. I'm very grateful to TechStrong team for awarding me the DevOps Executive of the Year award. So hopefully, I mean, I think from that award, I get the perspective that, people have been benefited with these initiatives which we have done, and it also encourages us to do more, right? So all these awards, again, as I said, they're encouraging and they're motivating, and it's also acknowledging the outstanding achievements not only for of an individual but for a community, right? So that helps us to foster the needle in the right direction.
Okay. That's wonderful, Garima. To even like what you mentioned, right? To be recognized out of Canada as well. Like it's across countries. So shows that the amount of work that you're doing, it has a vaster impact than what you originally started off with just focusing on Canada. Congratulations. I'm sure you will get many more down the line. Congratulations again. So thanks for
I'm waiting for my, award for my book because that is something which I haven't kind of, that's next on my list because,
sure.
as an author, it's an accomplishment, and this is what, like, as a practitioner, as a leader, you always have to crave for the next thing, right? So I'm still waiting for that one.
I'm sure you'll get there as soon as possible as well. It's not very far. Thanks, Garima, for that. So, uh, moving on to the last part of our talk, right? It's going to be a quick rapid fire round. All right, it's just requires like probably a one word or a one sentence response. All right, can we go ahead and get started on that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, perfect. The first one: what's your favorite aspect of your job?
People.
Wow, one word to describe your leadership style.
Inclusive.
Awesome. What's the best career advice you have ever received?
Keep learning.
Great. What's your go-to productivity hack?
Work with passion and work for the people.
There's a lot of people everywhere. Nice. How do you handle work-related stress if you get stressed at all?
I think I paint.
Lovely. Okay.
Mhm.
Good to know about that. How do you stay motivated during challenging times?
It's a hard one. I think exercise.
Right? Two new things about you, that you paint and you exercise. Um, what's your favorite way to unwind after a long day at work?
Watching a TV show.
Again, that is a very simple one. Nice. What's your top networking tip?
Be real. Yeah.
So, wow. Okay. What's one skill that you want to develop further this year?
Oh, that is also a good one. I want to do a lot of things.
Top one on
But
your list.
I think, as I said, I'm craving for
You
the
work
book
with
to be launched, right? So I think that is one of the top items on my list. Yeah.
love with that. Okay. What's your favorite quote that inspires you if you have one?
Hmm. I don't have a quote in mind, but I think I have people in mind who inspires me a lot. So I'm
Um,
very inspired by Satya Nadella as a leader. I am inspired by Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy. So that is another aspect, and I also follow Buddha teaching. So I think that that is also important from a spiritual point of view. If you have so many interactions and so many people around you, I think it helps me to kind of be focused.
Okay, lovely. I think these are influencers in your life, right? Instant quotes. Awesome. Great. Great, Garima. Thank you so much. It was lovely talking to you. I'm sure this is just a very small session that we had. But if we have to dwell into each question, I'm sure we could spend hours together having conversations on this. But thank you so much for this. This is just the beginning. I would definitely like to kind of have different sessions with you on different topics sometime in the future when you have time, given that you have such a busy schedule. But really wonderful talking to you. I've had my own lessons from this. I'm sure people listening to this also would have some great takeaways. And I'll definitely put your blog links as well in the reference so people can go there and check and kind of get into those community contributions as well. Lovely talking to you, Garima. Thank you so much for taking time. It's been wonderful.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. And I'm grateful that I have that opportunity with you to talk to you about my journey. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Garima. One of the key takeaways from our conversation with Garima today is about how the leadership focus has changed over the years, how it's important that you become a specialist and not a generalist to continue to grow in the coming future, the importance of having a commitment to a shared goal as a leader, and how you can go ahead and have strategic leadership improved and solve common problems through communities. Uh, these are some of the main ones. There's a lot more which you can read from her blogs and also go ahead and read her book, which is shared in the description. Thank you. Please leave your comments and feedback in the comment section. Talk to you soon in the next episode.